Hey there. If you've ever believed that every soul deserves to be heard, no matter their past, you've come to the right place. Here we tell stories of pain and redemption, of women forgotten by the world but not by God. Because sometimes the most powerful light comes from behind prison walls. Welcome to the channel. We're glad you're here. June's story began on a morning that seemed ordinary in the prison camp. But no morning was ever truly ordinary, not when you're hiding a pregnancy test up your sleeve. She kept her left hand still moving with careful steps, as if there was nothing to conceal. But sweat beaded at the back of her neck every time she neared the checkpoint at the end of the hall. A guard stood there, young, tall, his eyes locked on her face. "Where you headed, infirmary?" "I'm late," June murmured. A beat of silence stretched out, then he nodded. June didn't breathe again, until the bathroom door slammed shut behind her. She wasn't one to stand out in the camp, timid, quiet, so shy she'd once nearly had her face shoved into a sink for answering a question too slowly. They say if you're too soft in prison, you'll end up someone's meal sooner or later. But what she held in her hand, a pregnancy test bartered for half a stolen deodorant stick, and a promise never to name names, was the thing that made being the quiet one no longer an option. She sat down, pulled out the test like she was drawing a blade. Peed on it, eyes shut. "Please don't show. Please." One line, then two. One faint. One bold. For a few seconds, the world around her vanished. Only her heartbeat remained, and one word surged through her mind like blood: he did this. Nobody gets carelessly pregnant in prison. Here, every pregnancy is a contract signed in flesh. A price, a wound, a sentence without a judge. June left the bathroom with a blank face, a survival skill. But inside her head, a storm was brewing, fierce, silent, unstoppable. At breakfast, as she grabbed her tray, another inmate brushed past and whispered, "Be careful. A baby in here. It ain't like outside." Then she melted into the crowd. June didn't eat that morning, but someone was counting every meal she skipped. She sat at the far end of the table where the light flickered most, staring at the dust caked on her plastic tray, but her ears were taut as wire. Every whisper, every halting footstep, every uneven breath, she caught it all. A young guard, Dawson, passed her table. His eyes flicked over her face. He said nothing, but those 2 seconds of pause told her enough. They were watching. And she wasn't scared anymore. She was counting down. In her cell, June pried open an empty lipstick tube, one she'd gutted months ago. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a smudged scrap of paper, D5 laundry, backup camera. Not on the prison system. Chaplain Hayes's flashlight never turns off, because it's not just for light. It's for recording. Device code HBLK3. She bit her lip, tucked the note back, then pulled up her shirt, starting to write using charcoal mixed with spit on a thin square of toilet paper folded 4 ways. Not a diary. Not a confession. A list. Rhonda M., ID 01422, in the infirmary. 3 days, no medical reason given. Tanya D., ID 01837, moved cells after crying nonstop. Camille, night nurse, never checks blood pressure, only wrists. Hayes, chaplain, owns 3 flashlights, never tests for pregnancy. Dawson, guard, in 3 videos escorted inmates out at night. Jasmine, solitary 10 days after a loud scream, now silent, not eating. 3 red dots on the paper's edge marked it as hers. June hid the list in a crack behind the bunk, swapping it out every 2 days, dusting it with fake grime ground-up soap to cover her tracks. No phone, no internet. But she had her memory and her rage. A week later, June was called for a checkup. Camille, the gaunt nurse, wore gloves, her eyes unblinking. Before she could speak, June cut in her voice, sharp as steel. "You're about to ask how many weeks, aren't you?" Camille froze. Her hand lingered on June's wrist, longer than necessary. Her gaze darted away, hiding. June clenched her fist, whispering, "You know he's not the father. And if you think I don't know about the laundry room, about the USB and the med cabinet, you're underestimating me." Camille trembled just for a heartbeat. June stood, no orders needed. Before leaving, she turned back. "We're all in this game, aren't we? But I don't want to win. I want everyone to lose." That night, June traded a pack of instant noodles and 2 cigarettes for 5 minutes near the library's printer. In the dim light, she slipped a folded note into letters to an unknown father, a religious book only camp staff could borrow. The note was simple. "They record female inmates while unconscious. Some have disappeared. Ringleader Chaplain Hayes. Data hidden in the 3rd black flashlight. Prayer room. I'll expose it if I disappear. J." 2 days later, the library was temporarily closed. The manager was abruptly reassigned. Chaplain Hayes retired due to a stroke, and Camille found in the infirmary with a slashed wrist. The report said accident while cutting meds. June said nothing, but that night a stranger slid a note onto her dinner tray. "I don't know who you are, but thank you. My baby last year, it wasn't a miscarriage. Rhonda." The next morning, fog blanketed the prison yard. June stood in the middle, hand on her stomach. She didn't pray, just watched, like she was counting the beats of an approaching storm. A guard glanced at her, then looked away. Because now they were all wondering whose name would she expose next. June didn't choose to become a mother. But now she was giving birth to something else. A rebellion. A collapse. A hunger for justice. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't trembling anymore. There was one thing June forgot. In a game of chess, a pawn that moves too far forces the player's hand. 3 days after Chaplain Hayes' stroke, June was summoned to internal affairs. No notice, no warning, just a cloth bag yanked over her head. And silence. In a concrete room stripped of light, June was separated from her belongings. Each finger was inspected. No ink, no paper. Nothing left to hide, but nothing left to lose either. She sat, wrists bound to the chair. And then, Kay walked in. No uniform, no cuffs. She wore white sneakers, hair tied back a windbreaker without on. "It's a shame," Kay began, slapping a file down on the table. "I thought you were smart enough to survive, but turns out you think you're a player." June looked at her. Her eyes weren't angry, just cold. "What are you?" June asked softly. "The Camps or Hayes'." Kay laughed, a sound devoid of humanity. "I'm with the private rehabilitation program. 6-month contract. For every 10 people I filter, I walk free. You're number 8, June blinked. "And if I die, you get an extra point, right?" Kay shrugged. "Die or disappear. Same difference." She opened the file, pulled out an object, a USB, the one June had hidden inside a rag doll. "You didn't really think you were smarter than the system, did you?" Kay tilted her head. "You think you hid anything I know, every crack in the tiles, every thread you pulled from your blanket." June stayed silent, but inside a quiet vortex was rising. Not fear, confirmation the system had seen her, and it was stirring. That night June was moved to solitary. No cameras, no bed. Just Dawson sitting at a metal table holding a file and a syringe. "You thought you'd flip the table, didn't you?" he asked. "But you forgot the kid inside you is the real prize." He raised the syringe. The liquid inside gleamed pale gold. It won't hurt. Just a prenatal shot. Special kind. Helps you rest. Permanently. June swallowed. The bitter smell of the drug seeped into the air. Killing me is easy, she breathed. But you'll lose Rhonda, lose Camille, and lose the data. Dawson's eyes narrowed. You've got nothing. June lifted her chin. You forgot I didn't send the USB. But I sent hard copies, through the religious books. I know who borrowed that book last. I've got 3 more copies. One with Rhonda, one with Camille's daughter, and one I'm not telling. Dawson froze. The needle in his hand trembled slightly. You're bluffing. No, June whispered. I'm waiting. 2 days later, June was returned to her cell. No one said why. When she stepped inside, she found a small hand-stitched cloth on her bunk, a gray flag, the symbol of Raylock. Someone had left it there. Not as a warning, but as a silent death sentence. That night, Rhonda slipped to her cell door, whispering through the slot. They're transferring me next week, but I got the copy. It's sent. June nodded. Keep the baby safe. Don't eat what they give you, especially the juice. The next morning, June faked stomach pain to get to the infirmary. While Camille turned away, she hid a recording device rigged from a broken flashlight's battery under the exam table. She knew she needed more than proof of the system. She needed voices, names, titles. She needed Kay's voice, Dawson's voice, and if she got lucky, a deal spoken aloud. Kay didn't show that night. But a stranger, a figure in a hoodie face hidden, slid a note through her cell door's crack. I can't help you, but I have a daughter. She was taken from this place. I'm the transfer log keeper. I know. None of them come back. June folded the note, tucking it into her sleeve. Her chest ached, not from the baby kicking softly, but because she knew the system was starting to kill what it couldn't control. And for the first time, she saw what she carried wasn't just a child. It was a fuse. June was transferred to a high-security wing, the block for inmates deemed security risks. But it was here she saw Rhonda again. Rhonda sat curled up on the bottom bunk, her face pale, her belly swollen clearly in the final stage of pregnancy. When June stepped in, Rhonda looked up, her hollow eyes not flickering for a second. No greeting, no mention of the past. Just one question. You know yet I'm pregnant again? June sat down, her gaze fixed on Rhonda's stomach. I know, but this time, that baby's yours, not theirs. Rhonda didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth twitched. On the second day, Dawson himself stopped by their cell carrying cookies and apple juice, a gift no one in this wing ever got. Rhonda shrugged, chatting with him like they'd once gone on a date. Dawson put a hand on her belly, asking, "When's it due? Can't wait to meet the little guy." Rhonda just smiled. June watched from the back, her fists clenched white. On the third night, June risked tapping the wall 3 times, the signal Rhonda had taught her long ago to ask for help. No one answered. But when June climbed onto her bunk, a folded note was waiting on her pillow. Keep quiet. Trust me. We're on track. He thinks I'm his, but I'm only carrying my child. No one else's. Don't say a word. Don't glance at me. When I give birth, I'll bring the world crashing in. The anger in June simmered down. In the silence, she let out a quiet laugh. She and Rhonda were both pregnant, but inside them was a cold-blooded plan. Rhonda had been the first victim forced to serve the system. When she found out she was pregnant, she'd taken the abortion pills Camille gave her. But that time the pills didn't work. The baby survived. She kept it, not out of maternal love, but because it would be the dagger she hid through her pregnancy. A month earlier, she'd smuggled out a strand of her hair DNA through a young nurse new to the camp, a distant relative. The goal: compare it to the baby's afterbirth. If the DNA didn't match any father listed in the system, it would trigger a paternity investigation tied to rape. And Camille, after her staged wrist-cutting suicide, was under Rhonda's thumb. A recording. A vial of pills. A panicked confession: I was just following orders. I didn't know they were filming the girls. I'm just a nurse. June had a copy. On the 7th morning, Rhonda went into labor. The pain hit fast and fierce, but she refused anesthesia. Camille entered the makeshift delivery room, her hands shaking with fear. Rhonda whispered, "Don't forget this is my kid. And if I die, that recording lives." 2 hours later, a baby's cry echoed through the damp infirmary. Rhonda held her child. No tears. She looked at Camille, then at Dawson standing outside the double-glass window. "Want to hold him?" Rhonda asked, her voice light as air. Dawson grinned, nodded. Rhonda replied, "No need. You'll meet him soon enough. In court papers." June took Rhonda's hand, squeezing gently. "No thanks. No promises. Just a look, sharp as a blade, clear as a mirror, solid as an ally." After the perilous delivery, Rhonda was moved to a separate wing. The baby, a boy, 3.2 kilos, lay beside her in an iron crib draped with a thin cloth. Dawson came by that morning. No more cookies, no more apple juice. Just a strange look. A mix of dominance, possession, and fear. "The kid." "He's mine," Rhonda said, bluntly, unflinching. Dawson didn't react, but his eyes dropped a shade colder. "Then you should feel safe," he whispered. "Because I'll take care of both of you. Forever." Rhonda smiled, softly, enough to hide something else stirring inside her. Because she knew he didn't want to care for anyone. He just wanted to keep something that could silence her for good. June had given birth 2 months earlier. A girl. The strange thing was, no one touched her after the birth. No one dared. Not nurses. Not guards. No one asked who the father was. Even Camille, who'd once monitored every pregnant inmate, closely averted her eyes when she saw June. From the outside, it was like June was protected by some unseen force. No one knew why, but everyone understood. There's something behind this girl. Rhonda had asked once, "Who's the father?" June didn't answer. She just cradled her daughter and said, "This little girl is what keeps them from touching me." Not because of who made her, but because they're scared of what that truth might expose. Dawson was starting to panic. Rhonda had given birth, and he couldn't let the boy exist if a DNA test could pin him. He knew Rhonda wasn't alone. She'd whispered to Keller, shot odd glances at June, passed something to Camille that no one saw. He was losing control. One night, he brought Rhonda to the med room, just the two of them. He set a vial of pills on the table for a quick recovery. Light stuff. Rhonda looked at him. No smile. "You want me to take it in front of you, huh?" Dawson nodded. Rhonda shook her head. "If I die, you're done. But if I live, my kid will grow up to take you down." As soon as Rhonda left, Keller walked in, said nothing, just dropped a file on the table. Inside, a fake DNA test, and the real one proving the boy was Dawson's. Dawson shot to his feet. "You've been watching me." Keller smiled. "The first time in 3 years. I was waiting for the moment you thought you'd won." 3 days later, Dawson was called to an investigation room. But when he arrived, he saw Rhonda, June, Keller, and a woman in a gray suit, a federal investigator. June spoke. "We're not going to charge you with rape. We're not going to release the videos. We're not going to talk to any reporters. Dawson exhaled. If you sign a confession admitting to mismanagement, abuse of power, and agree to testify against the camp's trafficking network. Dawson's mouth fell open. The air seemed to freeze. You're out of moves, Dawson, Rhonda said, standing with her son in her arms. Because if you don't sign, tomorrow the video of your kid being born along with footage of you lacing pills with poison will be on CNN's desk. He signed. The investigation kicked off. The press ran stories. Camille was arrested. Several guards lost their jobs. June and Rhonda were released from the camp. It seemed like it was over, but the night before the transfer, Keller slipped June an envelope. Inside, a screenshot of the camp's internal security system. An order to delete footage from the day June gave birth. The fingerprint of the person who deleted it, someone from Homeland Security. June looked up. She understood. She wasn't being protected. She was being kept like a puzzle piece that needed to stay hidden. Rhonda said, "We thought we'd won." June cradled her daughter, her eyes empty. "No, we just touched the surface of the lake. And the real monster is still lurking at the bottom." Rhonda died on a quiet afternoon. No bruises, no blood, no scream, just a sudden collapse between the third spoonful of rice. She slumped sideways at the table, eyes wide open, the spoon dropped across her chest. Her mouth slightly parted as if she'd been about to say something unfinished. When the medics arrived, they didn't touch her for more than 5 seconds. No pulse check. No questions. They just draped a white sheet over her, as if her death had been logged, before it even happened. At that moment, June was passing by holding her daughter. She didn't see Rhonda fall. She only felt a sharp chill rip down her spine, like someone had snuffed out the last flame in a room no one dared relight. Rhonda had survived rape, childbirth, betrayal, compromise. And then she died from a spoonful of rice. June didn't believe it. After Rhonda's body was taken away, June immediately returned to the dining table. The scene was untouched. A cold tray of rice, a few grains scattered. She was the only one who dared to lean down. June's pinky fingernails, clipped just that morning, brushed a stray grain at the table's edge. Under the pale blue fluorescent light, her nail shimmered with a faint orange sheen, almost invisible unless you looked close enough. A chemical reaction. June froze. This was a toxin, odorless, tasteless, traceless. It only showed on the thinnest keratin, like a pinky nail, and was mentioned in an encrypted medical file, compound V-cell, selective termination. She'd glimpsed it fleetingly on Camille's screen during a blood test last month, when Camille forgot to hide the restricted data. 4 days before her death, Rhonda had asked June, "If you birth a child in the dark, who decides the first light it sees?" Back then, June thought it was philosophical. Now she knew it was a warning. Rhonda's son, whose DNA matched Dawson's, had been urgently relocated right after birth. The file cited respiratory risk, but June had seen the transfer slip flashed briefly when Rhonda held it up. Program V-Cell, External Holding Lab 7B. No one knew this lab was government-run. No one mentioned it in camp records. Only one code stuck in June's mind, J012. The file Camille had opened when logging June's blood test reaction. June's daughter was born 2 months earlier. Since then, no one had touched her. Not a nurse, not a guard. No one asked who the father was. And Camille avoided her gaze as if carrying a nameless guilt. June had suspected. Those nights she blacked out, waking up unclothed in the infirmary prayer room. Lights flickering, a low male voice in her ear. "You're special. Too special to disappear." She hadn't believed it then. But now after Rhonda's death, she understood she wasn't spared out of mercy. She was kept as a prototype. And her daughter was the next experiment. Keller vanished after the internal investigation. Some said he was transferred. Others said he was eliminated. But one night, June received a dinner tray earlier than usual. Tucked beneath, secured with thin tape, was a small envelope. Inside, a fake nail coated with the orange chemical sheen, and a handwritten note in blue ink. They'll think you've been successfully tested. They won't suspect if your blood matches the new toxin's reaction. But in truth, you haven't eaten a single bite. It's time to strike back. June clenched the fake nail in her palm. She understood. They thought she'd been implanted, but in reality she was still free. And that was her final edge. June held her daughter close, kissing her forehead, not out of maternal love, but because she knew if they want to play with blood, then we'll rewrite history with our own. And for the first time since entering the camp, she smiled. Not from hope, but because she was the only one who knew exactly what lay beneath the glass. Lately, June noticed something odd. Her clothes no longer smelled of the usual bleach. Instead, they carried a cold, sterile scent like a sealed operating room. Her shoes had been replaced without a word, but the soles were softer, silent. Identical to the ones the new nurses wore. Camille, back from the investigation, drew June's blood with a trembling hand, avoiding her eyes. And then one afternoon in the infirmary, June saw something only those marked would recognize. On the inside of her shirt, printed faintly in silver ink, was a new code, V9 PT Duxum 3. June understood instantly. She was no longer a prisoner. She was specimen 13 in the testing program. She couldn't make calls, couldn't send letters, couldn't leave the controlled zone. But one thing left the camp: daily dirty diapers. During the last diaper change, June deliberately nicked her pinky, letting a drop of blood soak into a small piece of gauze. She folded it, tucking it into the diaper's innermost lining, where the logistics crew rarely checked. She didn't know if it would reach anyone, but she knew there was a new nurse, the one who'd flashed her light 3 times after June received Kay's fake nail. And on the gauze, she wrote in her own blood, V9 PT on Circ 013 target June M. Cloning standardization. Camille knows, Keller missing, Rhonda cleanly eliminated. June changed. She feigned exhaustion, mimicked insomnia, staged a faint while breastfeeding. She deliberately left a nosebleed stain on her pillow, forcing Camille, already under tight scrutiny, to report a potential endocrine complication. She acted dazed, forgot names, lost her bearings. And finally, an order was signed to transfer June to a high-level biological observation unit. Her daughter was taken away for sterile reasons. Before they parted, June said only one thing to the new nurse. "If I don't come back, look at the pinky." The white room had no windows, no sound. It wasn't like any medical bay June had ever seen. A man in a gray suit entered. No name tag, no mask. "Your PT Dr. 013? Before you was 012 neural response overload. After you, no one's met the criteria." He placed a photo on the table. A girl about 5 lay in a glass tank. No expression, no movement. Her heartbeat via machine. Kept alive only to exist. That's the prototype. We failed with the first generation. But your daughter, she's structurally perfect. June held her breath. You have 2 options. 1, become the source mother sustaining the original cell chain. 2, or be replaced by a perfect replica with no memories. We can now replicate emotions, or erase them, depends on the order. June looked at him. You forgot one thing. She smiled. It's not emotions that make humans dangerous. It's memory. and I remember everything. That night, cameras recorded June lying still. Stable heart rate, flat brain waves. She was deeply asleep. But in truth, her mind mapped the lab. The pulse monitor system codes the location of the newborn blood storage vault, and she counted every second, every breath, waiting for 3 flashes from the hallway light, the signal her blood-soaked gauze had reached the right hands. June was no longer a test subject. She was the only one. Rewriting the game with blood, with memory, and with the system's own madness. June, or rather, Agent W411, had penetrated the system's core. No name, no daughter, no choices left. She was transferred to Biological Center 7B, an underground bunker buried beneath the old death row's concrete. No windows, no sense of time. No relics remained except a code sewn into blood, PT-013. Here humans were no longer human, just redefined protein clusters. They called her a cross-reactive subject. She faked a coma after an anesthetic injection, but they didn't know the drug had no effect. Her body had been altered since she was a zygote, an illegal experiment by her parents' geneticists executed for refusing to hand over the humane genome to the system. During an abdominal scan, June feigned discomfort, forcing the technician to skip rectal imaging. In that brief window, she hid a microchip inside her body encased in synthetic biomaterial. No scanner could detect it. The chip was the last copy from Garrett's lab, her former commander, and the only one who'd ever said, "It's not the survivors who are strong. It's those who remember who they were." The chip carried a satellite tracker and an uncracked code, the humane genome, the very thing the system hunted to erase from humanity. Who was she? June didn't end up in prison by chance. She was trained from age 8 in a covert program, Project Glassborn. The government once sought to create a generation of emotionless, family-free spies. But her parents, after discovering children were subjected to emotional experiments, betrayed the system, stole the neutralizing genome, and turned June into a weapon with full memory. Before they died, her mother said, "If you still remember love, you haven't been fully destroyed." Now June, the one the system thought they'd cleansed, was the only piece left carrying untainted humanity. June didn't come to hide. She came to erase the original cloning code from the central server so no one could use it to recreate artificial emotions. 2. Expose the Clone Mother program, where pregnant death row inmates were turned into biological incubators. 3. Dismantle the camp's internal prostitution network, where bodies were traded for biodata, and it would all begin on the 3rd night. The hallway lights flashed 3 times. The signal had arrived. The tracking chip activated a link to GhostNet, a covert network remnant installed by Garrett in the prison system 14 years ago. She cracked the core code, downloaded her parents' genome, the one immune to all memory-wiping programs, and she overwrote it with a kill code. If memory dies, humanity dies with it. June ran to sterile room 4. Her daughter, implanted with an artificial emotion chip, was asleep, her heart beating evenly as if programmed. June unplugged the cords, bit open her finger, drew a W on her daughter's forehead, standing for womb, war, and will. Not to mark her, but to remind we were once human. As the system shook, he stepped out from the shadows. The top secret coordinator, the one caught on camera in Rhonda's case. He didn't run, didn't shout, just whispered, "You're so much like my wife." I thought, if I could recreate a person, I'd forgive myself. I built 41 prototypes, but you're the original, and I could never recreate what I destroyed with my own hands. June raised the gun smuggled in exchange for a corrupted medical room code, aimed at his forehead. "You didn't create me. I was born from a woman who loved with her blood. And I will die for the truth." Bang! The 7B data core exploded. June's signal cut out after 6 minutes 41 seconds. Only one video escaped a woman holding a child amid smoke and fire. The child clutched a chipped cord tightly. On her forehead, a faint W. June looked into the lens. This isn't resistance. This is a reminder. Some things cannot be cloned. It's memory, it's trust, and it's mother's. A month later, in the ashes of Center 7B, a recovery team found a fireproof metal box. Inside was an unopened bio-incubation tube. The label read, "For and two." Beneath Emotion Archive Incomplete. Memory upload pending. The next morning, Center 7B was gone. The genome core explosion wiped out all files, devices, and clones. The central control system lost all connections. A special agency recovered a scorched cloth fragment, hand-stitched with the code W411. Beside it was a child's small hand, still warm. No bodies were found. June's final testament. A week later, an underground international comms network received a final video encoded as an animated image. The footage, June sat in a white room cradling her daughter, her hair singed. A tiny chipped earpiece, now broken, hung by her ear. She looked straight into the lens. Her voice was clear, steady, fearless. "I'm not a weapon. I'm not an experiment. I'm memory. I'm the result of a love hunted down. They said they wanted to clone a better humanity. But they forgot. Goodness doesn't come from blood, it comes from sacrifice. And kindness is never found in a lab." She paused, kissing her daughter's forehead. "My child won't be numbered. My child won't be called a specimen. She'll carry my name, my memories, and she'll carry what they can never replicate: humanity." 1 year later, in a distant place, a serene mountain valley free of cell signals, cameras, or surveillance, an elderly woman is raising a young girl with curly brown hair and quiet, steady eyes. The girl is called Emma. No one knows who her parents were. But once, with an unusual look in her eyes, she said, "I've seen fire. And in that fire, my mother held my hand and never let go." The cloning project leaked. Nations condemned it. Many key figures vanished or faced covert trials. Dawson Camille and the coordinators were prosecuted, but the case files were sealed forever. No one speaks of W411 anymore. No one dares. In a world where everything can be replaced, some things remain uncopyable, like a mother who chose to die so her child could live as human. June Monroe Code W411. No grave, no headstone. Only a single line in an internal CIA file, mission completed, but at the cost of humanity still not learning to be kind to itself. One early morning, sunlight streams through branches, casting a faint cross on the earth. Emma, now 6, sits by the window. She rarely smiles, but always listens. Those who come near say her eyes seem to have seen something greater than this world. The old woman raising her Aunt Anna is a devout Christian. A worn wooden cross hangs in their small home, and every evening Anna reads the Bible to Emma. On that day, the Lord came. Not with thunder, not with miracles, but with a whisper in the hearts of men. Those who heard it, those were saved. Emma often sits silently after those words. Until one day she spoke, "Aunt Anna, I believe my mother heard that whisper. And because of it, I'm alive." A mother's memory. Emma has few memories of June. Just an embrace, the smell of smoke, a kiss on her forehead, and a whispered voice, "You're not a product. You're a miracle." Aunt Anna never explained who Emma's mother was. But she quietly buried a small photo behind the cross, a woman in prison garb, holding a newborn eyes raised to the sky, fearless. Thousands of women were caged, coerced, turned into tools. But in a blind world, they still held a small light in their hearts. Though called criminals, whores, biological breeders, they were still mothers. They were still capable of love. They chose to save someone else over themselves. And in that choice, they became greater than any sentence. One day, Emma asked Aunt Anna, "Is God real? Why did God let my mother die even though she was good?" Anna looked at her, then pointed to the cross. "God doesn't promise to stop the darkness. He only promises to hold your hand as you walk through it." Emma nodded, then whispered, "Then my mother didn't walk alone." That evening, Emma placed a small candle before the cross. She closed her eyes. In her heart, she heard not a human voice, but something gentler, deeper than memory. A single sentence: "I was there, daughter, when your mother gave you to the light. When she burned, I held her soul. And as you grow, I will walk beside you as I walked beside her." We live in a world of shadows, unjust sentences, inhumane experiments, women stripped of their humanity. But as long as one person still prays, one child is raised with love, one spark shines at the tunnel's end, goodness is still winning, because He promised it would be so. Dedicated to all mothers, whatever their fate, who chose love over fear. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Matthew 5:7. In a quiet mountain valley far from surveillance, a girl named Emma grows under the care of Aunt Anna. At 6, her calm eyes hint at a past she barely recalls, a fire a mother's hand. The world has buried the cloning scandal, the trials of Dawson and Camille, and the name W411. But Emma carries an unerasable truth: her mother, June Monroe, died to ensure she lived human. A CIA file notes the mission's success, but laments humanity's failure to learn kindness. Anna, a devout Christian, reads scripture to Emma, who believes her mother heard God's whisper securing her survival. Emma's faint memories, a hug, smoke, a kiss, the words, "You're a miracle," persist. A hidden photo of June, fearless in prison garb, rests behind Anna's cross. Though countless women were dehumanized, their love and sacrifice outshone their labels. When Emma questions God's justice, Anna teaches her that God walks through darkness with us. Lighting a candle, Emma hears a divine whisper, assuring her that June's soul was held, and she too is guided. We live in a shadowed world, but as long as love and prayer endure, goodness prevails. Dedicated to all mothers who chose love over fear. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Matthew 5:7. Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. For the unheard, for the unseen, see you in the next story.